Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness, down the river of tranquility, to fill the lake of life with love.
And thank you for joining us, you lovely people out there tonight. Me and Lubby here want to thank you for joining us. As always, you can go to latenightLove.us to get all the complete show notes and the things maybe we didn't get to. Sometimes we don't always get to everything. So if you want to see what we didn't get to, you can go there. We've got, I don't know, it's an interesting show. Kind of have a couple different themes going on.
Yes, you do.
There's, we're going to start with discussing, well, we'll just jump right in. I was watching a clip. Well, I saw a clip. I actually wasn't watching it. I was doing something else on YouTube. I actually don't look for these kind of things for whatever reason. But the Jussie Smollett case came across, and he was sentenced this week. And at sentencing, he had a courtroom outburst, which by itself isn't all that surprising, right? Courtroom outbursts happen all the time. Not sentencing people. You're going to get sentenced to go put in a cage. It's an emotional time, so you can understand it on some level. And, we're not going to go into the details of the case because it's not what we do here. But what interested me was he, during his outburst, he had, whether it was either a moment of paranoia or a moment of self-reflection without knowing it, right? He goes up and he mentions, if something happens to me in jail, I'm not suicidal. I didn't commit suicide. Something happened to me, right? I didn't do it. But the thing is, people who aren't suicidal or paranoid don't think something's going to happen to them. He may be scared to go to jail, right? If you're not a criminal-minded person, going to jail is a scary thing. I can understand that. But getting suicided in jail isn't something that normal people think about.
Not really.
Non-suicidal people don't jump to thinking about suicide. You don't say, if something happens to me. So it's either my worry is he's either having a mental breakdown, which is understandable given the pressures and the stress and everything that's gone through, or he's paranoid. And either way, I hope he can get the next, couple months when he's in there, he can get some help and have access to some mental help. Because frankly, one way or the other, there's three ways we can look at this, right? He's either a severe narcissist and, is doing all this is pulling strings, and this is still just pulling emotional strings, which, right, you need mental help to get past that. Or he's paranoid, delusional, which, maybe schizophrenic or something, bipolar, who knows what combination of things is happening underneath there, that leads you to even behave like this in the first place, to create the conditions. You had to have, something has to be wrong in your thought process to, go through that whole setting up of this whole hoax thing, right? It's not a normal thought process.
Well, no.
And it's not a predatory thought process.
He's there for a reason. Yeah. He's being sentenced for a reason. Yes.
Something in his thought process isn't working properly. And so, I don't know. And his family isn't helping, rather than, they're clearly, you get someone that goes off to jail in your family that you love and care about. You're not going to be happy about it. But at the same time, there comes a point where, take the next. He got sentenced to 150 days in Illinois. If you're time for good behavior, all that, it's 1-to-1. So 75 days, spend the 75 days to reflect on yourself, to start your path to healing, because you're not going to get healed in 75 days, but you can start your path. And we can hope that, that's an opportunity taken rather than life destroyed. Personally, I'm not happy about using cages for nonviolent crimes, but that's a subject for a different show. That's a political show, and that's not what we do here. But that's anyway, I hope they use the opportunity to get better. And I hope for all of us, when you have these kind of opportunities in life, hey, a jail sentence isn't necessarily an opportunity, but if you've legitimately made mistakes, and now you have a chance to kind of contemplate and rethink. It's, find the silver linings, right? I guess.
Try.
I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, because at some point you're going to have to move past it. You're going to have to find some way to move past it internally, externally, right? Even if you feel you've been wrong somehow, even if you've convinced yourself that you're still the righteous victim here, you're still going to have to find some way to move on. And, become a better human being out of it. Because what else are you going to do with it? Something I've been telling myself a lot in the last, year, now 7, 8 months. Well, what else are you going to do with it? You have to look for the big bright sides out of it. You have to find the benefits as best we can. Anyway, so there's that. That's about enough of that. But it's a, that mental health journey that we all have. And I just lost my thing. Okay. So what are you on? Magic words?
Magic words. The writer of this article used, of course, to validate emotions when they're feeling emotions, and they're self-criticizing themselves for having those emotions. I get those when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need to slow down, and I criticize myself. You should be able to handle this, and what works for me is, you've done this before.
Well, you just heard mine. Well, what else are you going to do?
What else are you going to
do? That's how I get through my things. Okay, this has happened, but what you going to do? What else are you going to do? You're going to pick yourself up and you're going to try to move forward as best you can, because what else are you going to do?
And it starts the process for me, as soon as I can stop those voices, like I said, I say, you've done this before, then I start thinking about, how did I get through it before? And so you start the healing process already.
Yeah, the trick to that is this, to get your thought process changed, just to get your mind out of whatever circle it is and get it into another one, a more positive circle.
Yes.
Yeah, this has happened. Yeah, your life sucks. Yeah, you're bouncing into walls. But what are you going to do? You're going to sit on the ground and whine about it, or are you going to pick yourself up, put a smile on your face, and get through it as best you can? Yeah. Oh, what else? Really, what else are you going to do?
And then I start thinking about my tools, what tools I have that I can use.
Do that.
What works for me to get me through this? What did I do before? What mindset did I have that got me through this before? Was there any special friend who knows me when I get into this space, who's been through this with me before?
And the trick is, when you do these things a lot, we've gone through this for decades now. It almost becomes, easy is the wrong word. It almost becomes routine. It's not easy, but it's like, yeah, okay, I know what to do. And so you go through and you run through the checklist again. And there comes a point where you can run through the checklist without having to look at the checklist. And you may miss a step or two, but it's all right, because you've done it enough times. And then, and it's not that it's easy. If you think it's easy, it's a mislabeling of that. It's just, you become good at it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's easy.
Absolutely.
And so, you become better at it. That's the wrong thing. It becomes easier. No, it doesn't become easier. You become better at dealing with it. I mean, that's the trick. That's the thing that we have to understand is, like dealing with my anxiety disorder or dealing with bipolar. You become better at dealing with it is part of the equation. You become better at taking care of yourself. You become better at following your routines, taking care of your medications, whatever it is, at using the tools at your disposal without having to think about them so hard. But it's not because it's easy. It's just you're better at using those tools. There's a difference between easy and well practiced.
Some days are better than others. I'm basically a very positive person, so that's helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is, generally positive. But even if you're habitually negative, you can still change that.
Yes, you can.
It's just a little harder. It takes a little more dedication. But what else are you going to do? You going to live life as a negative Nelly all the time? Do you really want to live like that? It's not good for you. It's not good for the people you love. So put in a little effort to change your mindset. I was a negative person. I changed. You live life under a blanket of anxiety, you become a negative person. You're looking for dangers everywhere all the time. You can't help it. But you can change it. Because, you don't like being like that. That's why you change it. It's actually quite simple. Why do you change? Because you don't like being like that. It's not good. All right, so what I got next? Slow living. Oh, we've been kind of having this discussion, haven't we, over the last few months? As an antidote to anxiety. The difference between, for me anyway, living in an urban environment, in the middle of a growing city versus the theoretical tropical island or in the middle of a jungle, even if it's a civilized jungle, but, island life is a little slower, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's not cultural. It's just things move slower because things move slower. Things come by boat, instead of by truck. It's slower. They come by boat instead of truck and rail. They come by boat. Everything comes by boat. All right, if you have enough money, you can get it flown in, but that's outrageously expensive. So everything's a little slower. Everything comes by boat. So, there's less heavy equipment, less heavy machinery because there's less overall need for it. So everything's kind of, just exactly what you need rather than, you go into the city and or like California, you can always find a piece of heavy equipment, right? You may have to go 50, 60, 100 miles, but you can find one. If you're on the big island of Hawaii and you need a backhoe or digger or something, where are you going to get one? There's like probably 10 on the island. And if it's being used that day, it's being used that day. What are you going to do? All right, there's probably more than 10, but they're all being used for specific projects. There's not extras. There's not enough to just have stuff sitting around.
Well, you got to schedule it.
Yeah, and so everything's a little more. It's a little more scheduled, but a little less scheduled at the same time because the boat may be late, and so there's this flexibility in life, and there's and if you have anxiety, living in a fast-paced, crowded metropolis, so to speak, maybe not the best thing for you. Because it's input. You have to filter all that input. When you go off to a slower life with, fewer people, the input is easier to manage. And so the rest of your life doesn't change, but, you have less of that. So it makes the rest of it easier to cope with. Life is an equation. How much, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, how much input I have to deal with is how much input I have to deal with. And so if you can limit some of that by where you live, It becomes easier to manage.
I like in this article talking about returning to old style of living. She really cuts the social media and long walks
Yeah.
and I would suggest writing letters. What happened to writing letters?
Because we send emails now.
I know.
I'm someone who dislikes this notion that we like to complain about social media. Social media is how we use it. If you're complaining about social media, what you're actually complaining about is how you use it. But you want to put the blame onto this nebulous other thing. You don't want to accept your own behavior. I have no problems with people changing their behavior towards social media. I don't like how it interacts with me, so I'm going to change how I use it. That's great, right? More power to you. I will never complain about that. But when people blame social media, it's not social media's fault. Social media is exactly how you use it. It literally, the algorithms, more or less, feed you exactly what you want. That's what they're designed to do. They're designed to keep you engaged by giving you more things you want to see. So if you're seeing a bunch of negative things, you're clicking on a bunch of negative things. I always told somebody, if you want to do a neat trick, you go online and you search like Caribbean vacations, right? You go to Google, search for Caribbean vacations. You go to Facebook, search Caribbean vacation, and you go to YouTube, search Caribbean vacation, right? Whatever. And you know what you'll start seeing on all your news feeds? Stuff about Caribbean vacations. And then next thing you know, you're going to have lots of stuff about Caribbean vacations. And you can literally seed your news feed that way. You search for Caribbean vacations. You search for happy news stories.
Black cats.
Yeah, whatever it is you want to see, you search for it. You search for it a few times, they will start feeding you more of that. And you click on that, they will start feeding you more stuff like that. And you can seed your own social media feed. We just don't actively think about it. So don't blame social media. I have no problem saying I don't interact with it well. It's not a positive on my life. I'm going to cut most of it out. Great. Every one of us should make that active choice to use it or to not to use it, how to use it, how to not use it. You should make that choice. And whatever choice you make is your choice for you. I'm just not happy when people put the blame on social media rather than put the blame on the person in the mirror. People who use it and how you use it. That's all. It's a reflection of us. We're not a reflection of it. Anything else on that one? Slow living,
turning off the TV, negative news viewing. I've done this. I've seriously cut out my news. I get an email, CNN's top 5 news stories for the day every day, and that's my conversation points during the day.
Well, I don't watch much mainstream news coverage. I kind of watch new news. And it's just not because it just doesn't provide me anything of value. 5 minutes of news coverage of a story or the hyperbolic coverage of the news doesn't provide any value to me. So I get it from other sources. And the sad thing is that I find I have to continually change sources because as you find a good news source, that news source as they become bigger, they spend their whole lives, they kind of lose themselves and they become their own hyperbolic news. And so I'm finding that I'm continually having to evolve and change and get my news from different sources every few months. You just change to different sources. So you continually hop and skip around just so you can have a wide variety of perspectives. I mean, that's the antidote to a hyperbolic news cycle is to add more perspectives. And as you do that, they will be forced to change. But or just turn it off. Get your news from your trusted circle. But, who wants to do that as well? What was it? Was it Mark Twain? Which is Samuel Clemens? What he says, if you read the newspapers, if you don't read the newspapers, you're not informed. But if you do read the newspapers, you're misinformed. So, so what are you going to do, right? There's no good way to get out of there.
I like the slow living, slowing down, not packing your day. Taking time to savor that cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah, apparently, let me savor this cup of lemonade. Good Lord, I'm thirsty tonight.
Yes, you are.
All right. Yeah. But let's be careful here. You want to match your lifestyle with your personality. If you're a type A go-getter, you're not going to be happy in a lazy, laid-back lifestyle. You're just not. You want to fill your day with stuff. You want to continually do something. You don't feel good about yourself if you spend a day lounging around, right? You don't turn off well. It's actually not good for them. It's not good for their psyche. And so, so let's be careful for those of us who, aren't type A. So that's, it's true. Kind of society is just geared and designed by and for the type A's. And that's fundamentally wrong for the rest of us. But let's the rest of us not be overly judgmental. Let's not do the same thing. Let's have some freedom here to design our lifestyles and our perspectives that fit us. Yeah. Not everybody can be Elon Musk and who wants to have the world at their feet. Some people just want to sit back, relax, have a meaningful life and spend time with their family. Enough is enough. So there's nothing wrong with either one of those things. Is it right for you and your family and the ones you care about? That's the important thing. Okay, let's move on with this one. When PTSD, or quite frankly, any other issue, whether it's not necessarily PTSD, it can just be mindset from anxiety or anything, frankly, makes healthy relationships feel too good to be true. Or when anything makes a healthy relationship feel too good to be true. And that's the question is, because it's hard to know what a healthy relationship is, especially if you've had a history of having, unhealthy relationships. How do you know what a healthy relationship is? When you find one, how do you not screw it up?
And unfortunately, what comes up a lot of times is the impulse to test the relationship.
Yeah.
But you're going to make mistakes and you do it together. And I think that part of that, I think most people have felt that this is too good to be true if they've ever fallen in love. I think that's one of the stages, that one of the things that happens in falling in love sometimes, not always.
Yeah, but if let's say you've got a history of bad choices, let's say, of making bad choices, and so now you've actually finally made the right choice, a good choice. Do you trust yourself to have made a good choice, or are you always going to be going, I've made a laundry list of bad choices here. Now, maybe I've changed, what you're looking for, and so maybe that's why you found something different this time. But do you trust it? And maybe that's the PTSD. Maybe PTSD is probably the wrong word for it. Maybe it's a little too strong of a word for it. Maybe it's you're no longer confident in your decision making. And so this is too good to be true. What have I missed? I've always missed something. So what have I missed?
Now, see, I've gone through that when I was at the end of relationships, I always gave myself time to heal before I dip my toe in the water again.
Yeah, but
Because you can take it out on the next guy.
yeah, but how can you ever be sure? I mean,
You can't. It's a crapshoot, man. It's a God's wonder any two people ever get together.
yeah. Well, it is a strange thing because our complexity, our psychological complexity, allows us to kind of work things out, but it's also the root of all our problems. If we were simpler creatures, it would be easier to do this. But we're not simple creatures. And so it all becomes all highly complex. And then we all carry this, we call it baggage, right? We all carry this baggage around with us from previous relationships, life scars. I call them life scars, but you call it nature plus nurture, right? It's, that's nature and nurture, right? Nurture is your experiences, right? Nature is who you are, and nurturing is your experience. It's not necessarily how you were raised. It's just the accumulated toll of your experiences on your psyche. That's what nurture is. And so you mix those things together and you got who you are today. That's, you are an accumulation of your personality and your experiences. Yeah.
Yes.
And so you can't not carry it with you in some sense. The question is, what lessons do you learn, the right lessons, and do you try to move forward as a better person?
Some of it just stays, though. When we get into an argument, I still get to the point where I'm like, oh God, is this going to be it?
Well, that's you and Doom Brain, though. That's I'm not entirely sure that qualifies as PTSD. I think that's your bipolar.
I don't think it's PTSD, no.
I think that's your bipolar kicks in. It goes straight to the immediate worst. It's the two extremes. So.
But I changed what I was looking for. I was very simple. I prayed for 10 years for a man who was kind, and you're the kindest man I know. So I kept it simple.
Well, it's a good thing you pray for 10 years, because if you caught me 10 years before that, I might not have been the kindest person. I was on my own journey to becoming who I am, right?
Yes.
So, you had to wait around for me to mature.
Well, you kept me waiting long enough.
Hey, I'm hard-headed. What do you want from me? If you don't believe me, ask my mother. All right. So, but what comes with that is how do we forgive yourselves? I hope I put that. I didn't put this in the.
No, you didn't. No, how do you forgive yourself?
Yeah,
yes.
I actually missed the link. I forgot to hit the link in there, so I'll have to fix that later. But how do you forgive yourself? Hope you remember the article somewhat?
Somewhat, but not really.
Yeah, that's all right. We can wing it, because it's actually, the topic is, there's no one single way. Look, you can't move forward forgiving yourself for making historically bad choices.
Well, you can take ownership. That's the first step. And I remember that from the article. That's one of the steps in moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, well, the article only helps. When we quote these articles, let's be clear here. We're not actually reviewing a specific article. We're using it as a place to have the conversation about the subject. And so whether we remember to link the article, we link the article as a courtesy more than it is as a talking point, I suppose. It's just a basis where we start. Basis for the start of a conversation. By the time, like we said before, we got to someplace completely different by the time we get to the end of the conversation sometimes. But so the discussion about how do we forgive yourselves, whether we hit the article's points or not, it's you forgive yourself by wanting to for the very first thing. You have to be willing to. It's hard to be willing to forgive yourself. It's just hard. Because first means you have to, blame yourself in a sense. You have to accept responsibility.
Yes.
And
Who wants to do that?
yeah, and in a sense, sometimes you have to do it without blame. How do you accept responsibility when you're not to blame? But you have to.
Your own. I have to accept my part, even though it may not be as great as the other, and the injustice is glaring.
Yeah, but you still made the choices that you made, and you still help. Like, I have a nasty habit of finding bureaucratic holes, and then I make it worse. Well, I have to accept my responsibility for making these things worse, right? I react to them poorly, and so in order to move forward with it, you have to accept that, it's not all their responsibility for making it worse. Yeah, sure, finding bureaucratic holes sucks, but it happens. It's my responsibility to not make it worse.
I thought you were kidding when we first met.
Everybody does until they spend a few.
I cringe every time you have to get involved with government because something's going to happen.
Yeah, he always does. I find a bureaucratic hole. But the point is in order to forgive yourself, you have to find ways to move forward, and that's accepting your part in it. And sometimes it's accepting, forgiving other people's part in it. Remember, because forgiveness isn't. It's not about punishment, or it's not even about. The reason you forgive is so you can move forward. And so accepting responsibility for whatever roles we play in whatever disasters we are part of is the only way to move forward. And we have to become more willing to say we're wrong. Because what else are you going to do? Are we going to be stuck in a world where no one's willing to say we're wrong? We all point fingers at how wrong everybody else is, but no one's willing to point the finger at the person in the mirror? Is that the world? Excuse me. Is that the world we want to live in? I don't think so. I think the world we want to live in is a world where we all have empathy, and love, and compassion for everybody else, for those around us. And if we give it to other people will give it back to us. Ain't that right, my love?
Always.
You had no idea what I was talking about.
No, I just got back.
But it actually happened to work. I was talking about love and empathy and compassion.
I caught that part.
Oh, okay. So then we're all good. All right. So on with this week's questions, but we want to know you can always send Lubby a love letter, a dear Lubby letter. I suppose you can send her a love letter. She won't mind reading it. You're not going to get anywhere, but she wouldn't mind reading it. You can love
Sure
it
would.
at love@latenightLove.us. You can find us at anchor.fm to leave us a voice message, or you can send us, questions, comments, etc. on the various social media platforms and all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Great.
I got in some promotion this week. I forgot to do it last week and the week before. So, oh, that's terrible. Okay. I'll have to go in and take that out. All right. So what do we got tonight, love?
Okay, questions. How can one deal with a difficult spouse?
Well,
that's a broad question.
Well, the question is, did your spouse become difficult, or were they always difficult? If they become difficult, what's happened? Something's changed. Now, maybe you've evolved apart. Maybe the stresses of life are getting to them. You're going to have to figure that out. And the fact that you don't know, is a problem. Now, if you were always difficult, and now you're just annoyed by it, Well, you made a choice and now you have another one because it's their personality. It's kind of wrong for them to, I love who you are, and now all of a sudden you don't. So what changed in you? That now you find this behavior that you used to like now difficult. So there's two sides of this, right? There's your side, finding out why you find this behavior now difficult, and then there's their side, is why have they changed? But the bigger question to ask is, why have you become disconnected that you don't know why? You don't know the answer to that. For me, that's the question I'd answer first. Why have we become disconnected that I don't know the basic answer to this? Because you should know how to deal with your spouse when they're difficult. I know how to deal with you when you're being difficult.
Me? Difficult?
Yeah, you know how to deal with me when I'm being difficult.
Nah, just ignore you. It's temporary.
So, so dealing with your difficult spouse, it's your spouse. You know how to deal with them when they're difficult. That's you've learned that over time. And you've worked it out. So if something is fundamentally changed, it's within you or within them, what is that? Find out what that is, and then you can deal with the rest of it. It's like there's a maybe there's a grit of sand in your relationship that you all haven't dealt with that now needs to be dealt with. It's irritating. Maybe it's got nothing to do with it. Maybe they're not actually more difficult to deal with than they've ever been. It's just you're not dealing with something else. And so, I can't tell you. But my concern is that you don't know. You should know how to deal with your spouse. So, and if you can't, then then you should see a counselor to deal with, maybe your issues of self-esteem or lack of ability to assert your own needs. Because maybe they're not being difficult. You just don't know how to express yourself properly. Yeah, there's another side to that. Okay.
Should I allow my 13-year-old to lock their bedroom?
13's about the time where I would consider putting a lock on if they have brothers and sisters or whatnot. And, they don't have to, you get a key. It's not like you're putting a deadbolt on there or something. You give them a key, you get a key, you still get access in case you need it. But, I had a daughter with, a young daughter with, 3 older brothers living in the house. She was every right to feel like she wanted a lock. Whether they needed one or not, it's not really relevant. Makes them feel more comfortable. We're adults. I know how to get into a door for the locked door. A locked door isn't really a barrier to entry. You can drill it out in 5 seconds, so you just use the spare key, but it makes them feel better. So, okay. I like this next one.
I accidentally opened the package of my 14-year-old daughter and it contained multiple adult toys. What should I do? That happened to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, at 14, it's like you're a shade young.
It's a bit young, yeah.
It's a shade young, but at the same time,
well, it's a good opener for conversation.
Yes, but the problem is she's not going to buy that you accidentally opened the package because she's 14. Now it happens, you accidentally open things, you're not really paying attention. You open them, you think you're waiting for your own package, and so you think it's yours, and you open it.
That's what happened to me.
It happens. But at 14, is a 14-year-old going to believe that? You're spying on me. I have no privacy, right? That 14-year-old girls, that's a major concern. Privacy, and 14-year-old girls and boys. That the pubertus is a big thing. It's a big monster for both boys and girls, and it manifests itself in many, many ways. And And some of that is kind of a weird paranoia that people are always, that the world somehow cares enough to spy on them. The world doesn't care enough about you to spy on you, young one. It's the world, trust me, the world doesn't care enough about you to plot against you. But they think it does, right? Because their world is so small and it's so tight, and they don't have the experience. You're 14, you experienced nothing, but yet you think you've experienced the world. You think you've experienced, much of what the world has to offer, but you really haven't. And there's no telling you that. You can't tell a 14-year-old. You couldn't tell me at 14. It's just, you're built that way. We're designed that way. You're supposed to be young and dumb at 14. You go off and try things that other people won't try. That's impossible. Yeah, screw you. I'm going to go try it anyway. And they accomplish it because they're too stupid to know they can't. And, that's kind of the history of progress. So there's there's a reason you put young men in planes to go off and do the fighting, because they're the only ones dumb enough to do it. But, I just don't know what to do about it. What do? You have to give her a package. And you're right, it is an opportunity for a conversation. It's just you have to be prepared that they're going to think you were spying. Hopefully you have a constructive enough relationship with them that you can get past that initial. But, it may be a sign of concern. Hey, you're a little young to be sexually active. Can we have a discussion about this before it goes too much further? Maybe.
You need to talk about pregnancy.
Here's your stuff. You're a little young to be sexually active, so we need to have a chat. And it's not going to be a fun conversation. And you may want to have the chat at a different time, so it's not so embarrassing. They're not going to be, the day you give them that box may not be the time to have that conversation, but it may be time to set up that conversation. So, just saying. Anyway, there's no good answer to that, frankly. It's just you have to you have to muddle through that one the best you can. Is kind of my feeling, and just keep your ears out for something dangerous happening. That's just, not that there is. It's just eyes open. It's a little young. Okay.
As a parent, do I have the right to walk into my 15-year-old's bedroom without knocking?
Do you have a right? Yeah. Is it a good idea? No. Can you do something? Yeah, you can. You have a right to do it, sure. But should you? Probably not. Not unless you have a damn good reason. And you damn well better be right. Because if you're wrong, you've broken strings that you're not going to be able to tie back together easily. Remember, this is 15. This is pubertus. This is, do you really want to have an embarrassing moment for both of you? And quite frankly, teaching them respect for other people's space, personal space, and privacy starts at home. If you respect their privacy, they might have a higher chance of respecting the privacy and personal space of others. So, what lessons are you actually teaching? So can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? If you're gonna, you damn well better be right. That's all I got to say. Just, Okay. And you've raised girls. I mean, it's a little different with boys and girls, but still, anything with that on the group? Well,
I always knocked because I expected them to knock on my bedroom.
Yeah, teaching and showing common courtesy and privacy and respect, human respect. Yeah, okay.
My 20-year-old daughter wants to move in with us until she is finished with college. She says she will pay the bills, but she's a grown adult. How do I tell her that adults leave the nest?
Well, one, this notion that adults leave the nest is kind of a modern notion. Adults don't necessarily always leave the nest, especially when going to college. Lots of people stay home while they're going to college. Lots of people now have multi-generational households. In many cultures, it's the norm. So, now it's perfectly fine for you to want to say, hey, look, I've done my job. I've raised the daughters. She can, okay. You don't have to, it's perfectly fine for you to not to want to live with you. That's not a problem. It's your reasoning is the problem.
Maybe they don't want to own up to the fact that they don't want to live with their daughter.
Yeah. You're making an excuse. You don't want, you've got off, you're free, you've raised your kids, your house is empty, you're enjoying your life as no longer, parents, and you don't want to go back to having a child in the house. Okay. That's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't blame her for it. You're in a sense, you're wanting to blame her for that. What she's doing is perfectly natural. There's nothing wrong with it. There's also nothing wrong with you saying, I don't want to do it, except you're looking for an excuse. Something's telling you that you should, because there's something in there is telling you that you should. And you want an excuse that, oh, well, adults leave the house. That's my excuse for being mean to my child. So I'm just saying, someday you may have to be an old person needing to live with your daughter, have her take care of you in your last 2-3 years of life. And what she says, no. Because you didn't take care of her when she needed it. What lessons are you teaching? You get out of this world what you put into it. What are you putting out into this world? Do what you want, but there are, you reap what you sow. Okay.
Why are overqualified people overlooked by employers?
The tongue gnomes got you tonight. Why? Because being qualified and being good at, say, an interview, having personal skills, interpersonal skills, having the ability to make people like you are different things. Because it's not just about being able to do the job. It's about being able to fit in. It's about being able to work with other people. That's part of the job too. So when you talk about overqualified, they're overqualified. Maybe someone's overqualified for a reason. It's because they don't have the personal skills to get the jobs they're actually qualified for. People seem to forget that, interpersonal skills are, and, fitting in with the culture is a huge part of employment. It's not just the ability to do the tasks. It's ability to interact with the other people in the organization who also have their own tasks to do. And making that whole system work together with as less friction as possible. You have a prickly personality in a place that has a hippie personality, a hippie culture, it's not going to work. And so you're not going to get hired there. So that's how overqualified people get overlooked. They're not the right person for what they're looking for. They don't have a complete package. It's like a weightlifter who always works out their right arm. Got this big bulgy right arm, but their left arm is like a spaghetti noodle.
It's an interesting analogy.
Yeah, they're qualified in one area, but they're really, really weak in another. Okay.
My 2 best employees just quit because I hired 2 part-timers to give them 2 days off per week. I thought I was being nice to them and it backfired. How should I go about getting them back?
Well, actually, you probably were trying to be nice to them, but here's the thing. Did you ask them first? Did you talk to them first? Hey, guys, you guys have been working really freaking hard for me. I appreciate it. I'm going to hire a couple extra people so we can get you guys some time off. What do you guys think about that? How do you guys think? Right? And maybe they say, look, I appreciate it, but we need some of this overtime. I said, yeah, I get that you guys like the overtime, but I'm really worried about burning you guys out. So how about we hire one guy so you guys can work 6 days a week instead of 7, right? Instead of 2 days off, we can get you one. That way you can still get some overtime. And I'm feeling better about myself for not overworking you guys to death, right? You should have had that conversation before, because you thought you were, it says right there, the question, right? I thought I was being nice to them, but you should know you're being nice to them by talking to them first. Communication, a little civilization is all I ask. Can we talk to people before we can be nice to them so you know what they actually want? It's not that complicated. Hey, Bob, Sarah, you guys have been working your butts off 7 days a week. I want to hire some part-timers to give you guys a couple of days off a week so you guys could not burn your asses out. What do you feel about that? Right? Rather than, hey, Bob, Sarah, I've hired a couple of people, so now you got two days off a week. That's a very different, right? Asking someone before it happens versus telling them something that has happened. It's a vastly difference, including them in the process versus, now how do you get them back? By calling up and saying, look, I was sorry if there was a misunderstanding. Here's what we're trying to do. What can you or it may not even had nothing related to you. They may have had another opportunity. In the modern world, they may have just had a better job somewhere else. They're your best employees. Best employees have options. And it may, in fact, their leaving may not have had anything to do with you hiring somebody other than the fact that, hey, he now has other people who can do this job, so now I'm more comfortable leaving. So, again, talk to them. Have actual, genuine human conversation, human-to-human conversation. Not boss to employee, human-to-human. A real, genuine, human-to-human conversation, and then you can go from there. Whether it's training your new hires to be full-time, maybe starting with 3 instead of 2 so you don't burn them out. So you start by not burning them out. And, become better going forward. Become a better boss. Become a better leader. Take some leadership courses. Being a boss is more than about doing a task. It's about leading people. That's my suggestion. All right.
What will you say if an interviewer says you have 10 minutes to impress me?
Okay. Well, here's mine for this. You have 10 minutes to impress me. See, for me, an interview is I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. I'm a good employee. If you want to hire me, you have to impress me. So what are you going to do? You're going to dance on the table with the tutu? What? I wouldn't get hired at that place, but then again, I probably wouldn't want to be hired at a place who does that. So what do you care? But you never know. That might impress them, your ability to stand up to them. Say, well, this is stupid. You have to impress me. This isn't a one-way street. Stand up for yourself. Be assertive. Be who you are. There's no reason to be anything else. Trying to fake your way through an interview is counterproductive. They're not getting the person they think they are, and you're not, and you're getting a job you may not be fit for. So be who you. So unless you're insanely desperate, be who you are. Okay.
Job applicants who walked out of an interview before it was over. Why did you do it?
Well, see the question above. It's because someone had some stupid ass requirement. Or it became clear that it was a scam, like a pyramid scheme, or selling vacuum cleaners door to door or something like that. Just get up and leave. Thanks. Bye. Yeah, that's why. Okay, next.
My husband sleeps until 2 p.m. in the afternoon unless I wake him up. He doesn't work, doesn't clean, and plays video games all day. Where do I start when it comes to motivating him?
Well, first, it's not your responsibility to motivate him. Second, he's probably suffering from some kind of depression or some other kind of mental issue. And your suggestion should be to get him counseling so he can find some direction and meaning in his life. Because that's what's happened. He's lost the meaning to his existence. And it's not just him. This is a worldwide phenomenon in young men. And in China, it's actually young men and women. But in America, in Western cultures, it's mostly young men right now. The women will catch up shortly. Don't worry about that. You guys will get your own slots of depression, gender-related depression. It's hard to hit China. They call it laying flat. They do just enough to survive. They've jumped off the rat race.
Laying flat, huh?
Yeah, that's what they call it, laying flat. That's what all this, if for those of you, that's what all these Chinese restrictions on video game playing and internet restrictions, that's what it's all aimed at. We're going to solve that problem by not, but it's not. They're just going to lay there. So there's, generically speaking, if you're not dealing with, if it's not clinical depression, which frankly is what it sounds like, or you know, maybe you've got some other mental health issues, anxiety, and dealt with anxiety or bipolar or something that just led to depression. But counseling is the only way out of that. But point him in a direction. Maybe kind of start feeding him some Jordan Peterson videos and find him some directions for life. You know, lost young men seem to like Jordan Peterson. So, you know, forget the politics of it, the psychology of it. Feed him some of those 10 rules for life or 12 rules for life. Buy him the book. Jordan Peterson book. Young men seem to like that. And there's a whole generation of lost young men, and he seems to be part of it. And now they're suffering from depression because they're directionless and have no meaning in their lives. And so he has to find meaning in himself, and you can't motivate him. He's going to have to find that motivation in himself. You can love him and care about him. And, you know, there may come a point where, you know, it's too much for you to handle and you have to move on. And you may reach that point. And it's sad that you would. But, you know, everybody has their, you know, if the relationship isn't working for you, it's not working for you, right? And if he's not willing to help himself, you can't carry around an anchor. You know, how long can you be willing to carry around an anchor, right? How long should you expect? That's a line. Everybody,
And there's a question of enabling.
Yeah. And, you know, and who knows? And so counselors for you, counselors for him, eventually maybe a marriage counselor, except at this point, counselors for him and you, separate counselors would probably be best before you try a marriage counselor, because the marriage may not be in trouble if you solve his problems of being directionless. He's directionless, and he doesn't know how to solve it. And we don't have help for men. Directionless women have help. Directionless men don't. We treat our young men as disposable objects. We always have. It's just, now it's worse, because young men used to be able to, if nothing else, they could survive off the sweat of their brow, right? Just off the strong back. You can't do that anymore. You know, it's all you can. It's just harder. You know what, though? The biggest employment area for men is driver. Yeah. It's like a ditch digger of the old days. It's sad. There's nothing you can actually do. 12 Rules for Life. That's the name of the book. Send them 12 Rules for Life. Send them some YouTube videos. And my suggestion is don't lecture them. Tell him you're concerned about him and you love him and you don't like to see him suffering. A lot of times we approach this wrong. You demand change, all this. So I can't stand you suffering. Because that's the real problem. The real problem it's that you're watching him suffer and it's starting to affect you. And so start with that. Instead of blame, start with, I can't stand to see you suffer. Because you know what? That gives them a problem to fix. They like to fix problems. So be careful, maybe change how you approach it as well is another thing. A lot of times you approach that with anger and resentment. Try and approach it with the love side of that. All right, last one, right?
Okay, one more. My 10-year-old biological son keeps telling my adopted 12-year-old that she's not really family. I've tried to explain to him how that upsets her, but he doesn't stop. How can I make him understand?
Oh, he understands that it upsets her. That's why he's doing it, because he's 10-year-old butthead. And sadly, the only way to get him to stop is to have your 12-year-old not get upset by it. So it no longer has power. When it no longer has power, he'll stop. Now, the question is, why is this? What's the psychology behind a 12-year-old lashing out against a 10-year-old lashing out against a 12-year-old adopted brother or adopted sister? Sorry. That's the thing. Why is he feeling the need to lash out at his sister? I don't know. What's he unhappy about? There's something there. And he's 10. He's not going to be able to properly explain it. So you're going to have to puzzle it out. But this thing is the fact that your daughter gets upset is actually what kind of feeds it. So in a strange way, the only way to kind of combat it immediately is to not react to it. If it doesn't get a reaction, he'll stop. Because the only reason they do it is because it gets a reaction. Long term, figure out why he's upset. Feels the need to lashing out. All right, there's actually one more. All right, and we'll see. We're a little long tonight, but we'll cover it because there's only one. Right.
How, as her father, do I tell my 34-year-old daughter I prefer her to wear more modest clothing when we travel together? She wears jeans and a cardigan, but I want her to dress more modestly, more simple and plain clothing. What do I tell her? How can she get any more simple and plain?
What do you want her in one of those with the old dresses that go down to your feet with
a burqa or something? I don't know.
Maybe it's a religious. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a religious thing. Maybe he is wants. Maybe he's a religious.
He wants her in a dress or something. Maybe
dress. Yeah. Maybe. Hey, maybe not a burqa is a compromise. We don't know. Depending upon his religious.
That's true.
Or so it's entirely possible. But you can tell her all she wants. She's not going to do it. My guess is she's probably being kind to you by wearing jeans and a cardigan. She's probably already reached her compromise. And so you're going to have to accept it. She's 34. You're going to have to accept it. Look, what do you want to focus your time on? What else are you going to do? I'm going to come back to the saying again. What else are you going to do? You're going to accept it because you love her. Because you want to spend time with her. And because at the end of the day, in the Western world, jeans and a cardigan is modest. And you're just going to have to accept it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. It's perfectly acceptable not to like it. But you are going to have to accept it. Not you. You are going to have to accept it. I'm going to have to, the camera's over there. You is going to have to accept it. All right. So, we have a comment. Let's see when that came through. Oh, Mom, she said I'm right about being hard-headed. Yeah, I know. You see, my mother, she says I'm right about being hard-headed.
Yes, yes,
I
your
am.
mother would know.
Yeah, I'm hard-headed. That's from way back early in the show. All right, so from me and Lubby, I want to thank you guys for watching us this week. Catch us next week where I might be able to see better. I had eye surgery this week. That was good. It's slowly improving. So maybe I can actually see the buttons I'm pressing next week. But for me and Lubby, I want to thank you for joining us. We want to remind you can find us at latenightLove.us. You can send Lubby a Dear Lubby letter at love@latenightLove.us. And you can find us on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and various other social media and podcast networks. Good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Good night.